Okay, today's going to be a little bit of a different video. It's not really a tutorial or anything like that. I just kind of want to show this off because, again, this is just showing how, back in the day, Unreal Engine was still popular. No, it wasn't anything like it is today, but basically, a lot of games would use it. And this game, Splinter Cell Pandora Tomorrow, is another game that actually uses the engine. So, this engine wasn't with the game, or at least the editor wasn't with the game when I installed it. Maybe there's something I didn't do right, but anyway, I downloaded the latest one online, installed it, and I'll show you how to do that in a second. But basically, as you can see, I mean, this is an older engine. It obviously doesn't render things like the newer engines do, but think back in 2004, Unreal Tournament 2004, things like that. This is basically that engine that's powering this game. So, for instance, let me go to a more um, lighted version so you can kind of see the models they have in here and stuff. But it's primitive. It's simple for back in the day, but they used this engine for this game. So it's pretty cool because they also added some features to this version of the engine where normally they wouldn't have these, but since the mechanics of the game need it, this is the custom part, at least of this build, that the developers needed to use to get what they wanted accomplished. So basically, what I'm talking about is, for instance, this here. This is basically the ledge system where he like hangs off of stuff, climbs across stuff, zip lines, pipes, fences, walls, whatever. And also the lights in this game, for instance, let me go back to the lighted. So you see how a lot of these levels are like this, right? So it's because the whole point is you're trying to stick to the shadows, right? Stay in the shadows and try to stay out of the light. And if there's any NPCs that walk through, you'll have places to hide. And the more you're in the light, the meter in the game at the bottom right will go up and you'll be spotted versus when, it stays down, you won't be. So that's just one of the factors that are part of the game there. And the lights actually work in the system for that. So it's pretty cool how they did that. But basically, that's another thing that's unique to this, as well as like I said, for instance, textures, texture of a fence, a chain link fence, for instance, you can go under its properties and make it climbable. So when you set it up properly, like any other BSP brush or static mesh that you're using, it will actually know that that's climbable. So you'll be able to climb up it, jump up on it, go over it, things like that. So when you make a fence, it will know what to do for the most part. But there are certain steps you have to set up, obviously, to make it fully work. But this is just basically the editor as is. And I'm going to show you some documentation that comes with it, which is cool because usually I have to track this stuff down. Now, the only documentation I think it's missing is like the exact units. Like you have one Unreal unit of measurement in this engine, and you're not really sure from engine to engine exactly what that measurement's going to equal to in the real world. So, for instance, Killing Floor, which came out in 2009, uses this engine but a more advanced version, and its measurement is one Unreal unit equals 0.75 inches, right? Now, other games may use, one Unreal unit equals 1 centimeter, things like that, so you have to be careful. But once you realize what units they use, then you can make models in static meshes, whatever you're doing outside of the actual engine, and import them, and they'll be the exact same size that you had in the 3D modeling program. So anything you model, modular like levels, things like that, it will all work perfect, be the proper size. And I always make sure of that when like I'm making stuff in like 3ds Max. I make sure that I have a player scale box or something that's basically like the size of their collision around them that they'll have that you won't see, but it's a collision bubble. And then it will encase the actual model itself, height and width wise. And so this usually goes by what the developers say is like the height and width of the character. So that way, everything you model will be around that, and he'll be able to go through doorways, things like that for the most part. So it doesn't have to be exactly what they do, but they do give you, recommended specs for doorways, windows, things like that for most of these games. Now, Rainbow Six 3 Raven Shield, they actually, some people have been able to get this information from the developers and put it out to the community. I do have a copy of that. It was actually on an old site called rvsmaps.com. They actually have that on ModDB. So if you want to look it up, you can find it there. It's basically their site mirrored into a file that you can download and look at. And it's under the left side of the menu that says dimensions, I believe, something in dimensions. So it's just basically talking about scale and dimensions. Yeah. So that's what I need to figure out for this one. I got to make sure that this is the proper scale whenever I model something in the 3D modeling program. So once I find that out, I'll let you guys know. Then I'm also going to let you know from what I found out with the exact dimensions for doors, windows, double doorways, things like that. Vents, any of that stuff. I'll tell you what the dimensions are. And I'll make sure I test it so that as far as I know, those are the dimensions they intended for basically everything, right? So then that way you have a good idea of what to work around if you decide to use this editor for this game. Now, I know a lot of people like Splinter Cell. I know a lot of people probably thought this game wasn't the greatest one, but still the multiplayer is pretty fun. And that's what I would be making these for, really. And I know a lot of people want to see a new game. I do. I just started getting into this. So it'd be nice to see a newer game. But until then, basically, I figured I'd kind of bring this back. So this is a perfect way of doing it because this is what I do on my channel. So this here is the editor. And to install this, let me show you real quick. So basically what I do is I get a zip file, and I download it from this page here. And I'll put the link in the description. And once you download this, it's a zip file. You unzip it. And then you would want to go to your root game folder. So I just created a games folder on another game drive, put this in there, and then I come down to the online folder. You want to make sure this is the folder you're in. Okay. So make sure you don't install it to these. I know you see system and packages here, and that file is going to have those in it, but that's not where you want to install it. Make sure you're in the online folder, then install it in here, and then everything else just drop in because basically you're going to have the documentation right there next to it. So there's that. That's all installed. That's it. That's all you got to do. So if you didn't do it right, you're going to get errors about like DLL's not working, like EAX and things like that. Will just say they're not there, not located because it's not in the right folder. So once that's done, for just the sake of showing you, I'm going to show you one of these documentation files that show sort of how they make it so that Sam can jump on the ledges and jump over walls and use all sorts of stuff in the level. And they're going to show you how to set this up pretty quick. Obviously a lot of it's going to be trial and error as well, but I have LibreOffice on here. So this is a Microsoft file, I believe, or at least it's a file type that this will accept and display properly with images and everything. So if you don't have Microsoft Office, go out and get LibreOffice. It's free, it's open source, and I've been using it ever since I got it, which is a few years now. So this is basically showing you, let me see if I can get like a custom view here. My page, optimal view. Variable. Here we go. So what about one? Perfect. All right. So yeah, so it's going to show you a lot of information. I'm not going to read all over it, but it's kind of giving you an idea of what to do for ledges and things like that. It's going to show you like the minimum, maximum, and then maximum when he's running and jumping, what he can climb onto. And these are BSPs, by the way, but I'm sure it could work with static meshes as well. So, and then of course, little spots like this, the amount of space you need to stand up next to a wall, all sorts of stuff. Obviously, how to jump over walls as well, which is a really nice feature to have because then you can duck down behind and then jump over, sort of like Gears of War. They use Unreal Engine too, and they do a lot of that ducking behind cover and stuff. And sometimes they even have triggers to do that for the animation. But, and then here it is going over pipes and stuff, climbing up or down pipes, going up and down ladders. This right here clearly showing a static mesh of a ladder that he's climbing up. And you got the zip lines. So it basically, yep. And here's the texture, right? So you can make it climbable. Now this is the new setting for this version of the editor for this game. This is something I believe that was added later, but it's also in this game. At least this is the first time I've seen in this game, but I've heard of it before. So this is basically make it climbable. Boom. Obviously you got to set other things on, but it basically gives you everything you need to know to make a level where Sam can go around, get around people, do things like that. The whole premise of the game. And it will show you how to do it. Once you understand these principles, you can make this for anything. So there's the documentation, which is pretty cool. I've been trying to collect all of the old Unreal Engine 2 documentation I can find. I'm obviously going to go out and look for more UDK as well to kind of try to save that in case, who knows, one day we won't have this anymore, and hopefully I'll have a backup somewhere where I can upload it for people. But Obviously, I have to get permission, but if it's public files that have been out there forever, then those are the ones I'll re-upload without issue. It's like PDFs mainly that I have. I also have old websites that I've had for a long time that I mirrored. And I don't advise doing that unless you ask the web host. I did it in a way where it took a long time so it wouldn't strain their servers. You need to know what you're doing, but even so, I don't condone just doing it. But I did have to do that because I figured they were going to go bye bye, and sure enough, one day they did. And again, I have like the Rainbow Six Raven Shield tutorials for mapping and stuff. I have those. I have stuff for Unreal Tournament 1999, 2004, a little bit for Killing Floor as well. All sorts of stuff. So if you're interested, I can see if I can put it on like a server somewhere for people to download. But again, I have to make sure what's legal and what I can and can't upload. So, but if you're just curious, go out there and look. Unreal Editor 2, Unreal Engine 2, and PDF files or tutorials. Smearcat has a bunch of tutorials here on YouTube. I know it's kind of an older channel, but he's done a few videos, I think, in the last few years. But I hope he makes more tutorials because I learned a lot from him. But I would like to at some point do tutorial series like he does for the older engines because I feel like it's something that everybody should learn. Even if you're learning the new stuff, you should learn how some of the old stuff was done so you get a kind of a good idea of the contrast as well as techniques that you can still clearly use today. But also, what's really cool is that some people can replace textures with HD textures after they do the editing, right? See how it's kind of blurry? Well, they have HD textures for this. Will make it look way better. And they match very closely to the originals and they have the same UV positioning for static meshes as they did in the original game. So you don't have to worry about, any changes that don't look right. But also, it's like, it was something else. Um, well, I forgot. So sorry about that. But anyway, this is, something that I like to teach people because, again, like I said, it's good to learn the old stuff as well as the new. And once you kind of get an idea of what they've had to go through over the years to make these, you might have a little bit more understanding of why some of your games taken forever to release, or if they release quick, they're all buggy and messed up. But this is just a good place to start. This is what I grew up using. This is actually the engine. Unreal Tournament 1999 Game of the Year edition was the engine that I used in their editor to start learning anything 3D. So this is something that if I could teach myself and I use something like this, then you'll understand concepts when you're going into other stuff like 3ds Max, Splendor, maybe Unity or other engines. You'll get you understand what you have to do to kind of create models that are optimized as well as they make sense. Newer engines, like I said, there's going to be different methods of doing stuff. So, but this is the old school way, and this is a game that I thought was, the first one was great. I think I played Chaos Theory and Blacklist, um, but I enjoyed it. And now that I know that I can make my own maps and stuff like that, I'm going to be all for it. Doing the same thing for Raven Shield, Rainbow Six 3, and we'll see how that turns out. But that, what, that's another thing. It may have the same dimensions for measurement in this engine as it does that game. And if that's the case, I'll just release that and let everybody know. But I'm pretty sure it's a little different. You have squads in that game versus this one where you're just one person. Um, so yeah, hopefully this is kind of been pretty cool to see. And again, like I said, if you want this map editor, it's right here. And again, I will put this link in the description of the video so that you guys can download it for yourself and test it out. So, all right, guys, thanks for watching. I'll catch you all later.